This is Gateway City Sports.
It's a trap!
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
This is the Team of Rivals podcast.
Everything you want to hear from the big sports to the big screen.
He's all by himself, fires into the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! No!
Vaughn into the windup in his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed.
He doesn't like you. I don't like you either.
Time winding down, Michael for three. Yes! She is gone!
I don't believe what I just saw!
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy! You believe in miracles?
You may fire when ready.
What?
Good evening, Cubs and Cardinals fans, to the Team of Rivals podcast, proud members of the Gateway City Sports Network, where you can find great podcast and blog content. It's Thursday, May 11th. You can follow us on social media, Team of Rivals Pod, or find us online at teamofrivalspodcast.com. For those of you who prefer to watch the show, we also post to YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. So hit the like and subscribe buttons and be sure those notifications are on, anytime we post new content or stream live, unlike this week. I was all excited, but then I had to contact my attorney because I'm considering filing a lawsuit against all the Cardinals fans for the severe case of whiplash that I suffered on Monday? Yeah, Monday night. All the whiplash for all the Cardinals fans who just couldn't stand Willson Contreras this past weekend until he stuck it to the Cubs, and then he was their favorite Cardinal ever since Stan the Man, but Stan the Man has nothing on Willson Contreras. Anyway, joining me for this week's founder of the Team of Rivals podcast, number 125 in the 2021 edition of the Top Cards on Twitter. And while he's not a Willson Contreras fan, he's a stand-in for all those stands in the Lou, Ron Nuttall. And joining us again this week after sojourn into the North Carolina mountains, permanent occasional guest host, Elliott.
Hello.
How you doing, Sauce?
I don't know what that's about, but I don't know who paints things in a worse broad stroke, you or Trump, because you said Cardinals fans who hated Contreras, right? And you continually you blow past this on purpose. It is the pocket of Cardinals Twitter fans who've never played organized baseball, nor had the skill to play, and then nothing but analytics. That is who you're talking about. Am I correct? Because you said all Cardinals fans.
Yeah, I'm talking about all the Cardinals fans who thought that, or who had declared over the weekend, as Willson Contreras was unceremoniously pulled from catching duties, who suddenly declared that he was a terrible signing and that they never wanted him anyway.
Man,
until he had a night.
We have different Twitter feeds, obviously, because I've seen. I rarely have things like pulled the two extreme sides of Cardinals fans together that I've seen, that I've at least read through, that I've scrolled through, that I've picked up on. So, including media, right? The bigger media players in St. Louis area. I've actually seen more support from the Cardinals fan base for Willson Contreras starting in the weekend. And we can get into all the reasons why. There's a big ass can of worms here they're getting ready to open in terms of Willson Contreras, the Cardinals handling of that situation, and then other bullshit that has come up this week that organization has pulled. But I disagree. So I don't know what your limited feed is, but my feed has outgrowing of support, and I could probably count maybe on one hand, maybe two hands. Maybe I got to use 10 digits of assholes out there who fit the mold of what I was talking about before, who really don't know the game that well, other than just the numbers. That were they've been there from the beginning, Pete, since they signed him. They've stuck to it. They hate the catcher. It was the worst thing the Cardinals could have ever done. They should have traded, 3 or 4 or 5 people away for Sean Murphy, and then he would have the best WAR in the league, catching that Cardinals staff right now. They're convinced of that.
Now, if you had Sean Murphy and your pitchers still sucked the way that they do you think they'd blame Sean Murphy?
Man, guys, don't make me repeat myself. Like, you guys heard me going into this offseason and then into the season and through spring training. I told you this pitching staff was going to – this one is going – it is. It's biting them right now, and they've been playing with fire for about 3 years. And we knew this was going to implode on them, and it's a failure of the front office. The only thing that hasn't happened to the Cardinals right now is that front office, starting with Mo, have not taken responsibility for the pitching staff and its construction and the bad bets they've placed on it. They've done everything but blame themselves for that mistake. You guys,
who also agrees with you?
How many years going back have I been saying this about this pitching? It's a house of cards, no pun intended, right? It's glass. It's a glass house, man. And it was going to break, and it's breaking. And over the last 5 days, that pitching, since Willson has been, he's not caught the last 5 games. They're almost every metric is worse. 5-game sample, you can call it small, but nothing has improved. So blame it on the original catcher all you want, and I'll get into my issues I have with that are more on the organization than it is players. But yeah, it's that had to be the topic of this week, right? I mean, this has been unbelievable to witness. Not getting a story straight, not being on the same page. I think fucking doing this in the first place is awful.
Happening while they're coming into their biggest rival into Chicago, and having the entire Chicago radio media talking about it, talking with the beat writers from St. Louis about it on the Chicago radio shows.
And on their own podcasts. Those St. Louis media guys have podcasts, and they've been talking to a lot of those same guys that you're referring to. It is like Pete,
I'm here for it.
Do you want to start from the beginning of this, or do you want me to kind of walk through at least what we know so far? Right, like we know there's been a faction of fans who hate this, who they wanted, and they're always going to be this way. If it's not a homegrown guy or some guy under the age of 28 that the Cardinals are trading for, there are a certain set of assholes out there that everything's icky if it's not homegrown, if it's over 28 years old and you trade for them. They hate it no matter what.
That was kind of like your dating life for a while, wasn't it?
Yeah, it would be if I were single right now. I don't know, homegrown might be kind of weird. But you get my point, right? We know who they are. We see them lurking around there on social media, and they're always going to hate
part of the B-fibs.
Always going to hate the outsider. They're always going to hate the guy that they think is past the prime or too old. And they always think the next guy in Memphis or Springfield, that's going to fix everything. And they're always going to be that way. There's no arguing with them, right? Just lost cause. So they've been there from the beginning. I was surprised in this signing to begin with. I thought the Cardinals, if they're going to do anything, they would have traded for something, or they would have just stuck with, what they had, which was Kisner, and they signed another guy, Barrera. I think I might have the name wrong. And they got Ivan Herrera.
Trace.
They got Trace Barrera, and then they've got Ivan Herrera down in the minor leagues too, right? He's the next one that's supposed to come up. So I thought, well, they're either going to trade for somebody or they're going to, test out their own catching core, honestly. So when they signed Contreras, a little bit surprised me too. But, I heard, I think Pete probably the most about his deficiencies, call him like defensively, right? And Chicago obviously saw the same thing. They didn't really they made zero effort to get him to bring him back, and they put him in a position where he could, keep his legs fresh and DH him a lot more last year, so they could get the pick and all the compensation that comes with that, right? So they played that really well. But look, it was a love fest when they signed him, right? They loved the interview with him. He loved them. he was going to be their catcher. And then what? He's caught 25, 26 games, and they pivot on that. With a 5-year deal, nearly $90 million committed, that you pivot on this because of the handling of the pitching staff that hasn't improved since he stopped catching. Pitching staff that we all knew was going to be weak. You got a 41-year-old Adam Wainwright, somewhere in the middle of that rotation. You got Jack Flaherty, who had a billion question marks hanging over his head. Question mark from Miles Michaelis, who you thought maybe your only steady piece that you would have had in the rotation. Steven Matz, who, quite frankly, that's been a bust so far. And then you've had a rotation of Woodford. Maybe Hudson will pop up. It was weak going into the year. We knew this. Pete asked me several times, when do the Cardinals fans turn on Wilson if the pitching sucks all year long? And I thought, there's probably should be a long rope. And I never in a million years thought the organization would turn on him quicker than Cardinals fans would. And that's exactly what I think I've seen happen. That the organization has thrown him under the bus for their own mistakes, for failing to address their biggest, most glaring weakness. And it has been for the last couple of years. They've done nothing about it. They can't even take blame for this. Instead, they're gonna turn and back the bus over their $90 million catcher that they just promised and committed something to. And they've taken him out of his position. And pitchers are not off the hook either. There's been a couple pitchers. Well, I don't know names, and I'm not behind the door. I don't know what's said, but it appears that the Cardinals pitching staff has complained of this too. Well, I don't know what they're complaining about. Everything they've done has been worse. Not saying it'd be better, but it's not gotten any better. It's not improved. So
to kind of fill in that gap, one of the beat writers, Bernie Miklasz.
Oh, he's been right where I've been in terms of just being pissed about this. Yep.
He was on 670 The Score in the morning and talking about this with Mully and Haw, and he pretty much said that the St. Louis pitching staff has been babied this whole entire time that Yadier's been there, because Yadi did all the homework, he did all the scouting, he pretty much he would watch he was so smart that he would watch the way the batters were swinging and call pitches based on that in locations. And he pretty much said the pitching staff are a bunch of whiny little babies now, because now they have to do.
You have to think for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He called it bottle feeding, right? Like they've been bottle fed by Yachty for so long. And I don't know, man. This is
it sucks for Wilson.
It does.
I mean,
it totally does. Look, I'm not saying he's fantastic, but I thought it would at least be 3 years where he'd be the primary catcher, like talking 100 games, 120 games maybe in a good year. I thought we'd be talking about year 4 or 5 before this would occur. The fact that this has occurred right now is it's a terrible look on that organization's part. Terrible look for that front office. They've compounded the problem by not taking responsibility for the shitty pitching staff that he put together. And it is. I don't think we have to debate that one. I know you guys would be happy to agree with me. But I think if you're you give a lot of Cardinals fans, even the diehards, truth serum, we knew pitching was going to be a problem. We knew it was, and it is, and it's worse. It's worse than I thought it would be. And just the fact that they're turning the blame on the catcher, to me, is just unbelievable. Unbelievable. Bad look. They deserve every bit of egg they have in their face right now, and they deserve every bit of criticism they're getting from the St. Louis media, who normally doesn't take a lot of shots at them, but they deserve every one they're getting right now.
Well, far be it from me to defend the Cardinals organization. And to start right up front, the way that they have handled this has been terrible.
Mm-hmm.
There's no excuse for it. The way that they handled this is unforgivable. But one of the criticisms that got out after Wilson left, and it kept coming out, and I think David Ross was probably the one who was most, wouldn't say vocal, the least quiet about it when it came to Wilson, was not his game calling. It wasn't his receiving or anything. It was his preparation. And on multiple occasions, David Ross said that he, without getting directly into it, he didn't like the way that Wilson prepared for games. And I'm sure this goes back a ways. If anybody has experience with the way that Willson prepares for games in between games, it's going to be David Ross, right? Because he was there when he was a teammate, and now he's there as a manager. And what was the one thing that Ali Marmol called Contreras out for? It was game prep. It had nothing. He didn't mention receiving. He didn't mention calling, any of that. And I know that that's what everybody else is saying. And I know that Willson reached out to Yadi, and Yadi said, we need to execute better. But maybe part of the reason why the pitchers aren't executing is because they don't have confidence in what Wilson's calling, because Willson is not reading the scouting report. And that's a big part from what got into the Chicago media after he signed with the Cardinals. A big part of the reason that the Cubs decided to move on from him was because he didn't take game prep seriously in between starts.
Yeah.
That having been said, the Cardinals could have handled this way better.
Way better than they have. If that was a problem, look, we all work for organizations, right? When you have problems like that, there are better ways to handle them. If preparation in the Cardinals instance was an issue, how many conversations were had before you had to turn to this, right? Like, we may never know that. But you got a guy here who reported to spring training early. He skipped the WBC so he could do the work to get to know this staff. So just from what we know, Pete, it's not consistent with what we as fans have just seen on this side up to this point. But we're also not there day to day, so we don't know. But if that is a problem, yes, I mean, hopefully that he's addressing that. But still, got fully formed grown ass man at 30 years old, having this happen is probably it's definitely embarrassing. I mean, he's a guy that runs on a lot of passion. There's ego involved there too, and so it really is kind of crazy. The Cardinals would be smarter if they just fucking stopped talking about it or never talked about it in the first place. Just put him at DH. Call it something else for a while. Hey, we're working on some things. It's a new staff to him. There's a pitching clock this year, which I don't feel sorry for anybody for, because the whole league has to deal with it.
Everybody's doing it.
Yeah, everybody's got to deal with it. Maybe some are more, but I get it, right? Like, Sean Murphy doesn't seem to be having this problem. But if you think about it, new catcher, new staff, pitch clock in there. Okay, there are some factors. That are kind of a little bit out of the norm. I maybe give a little bit of grace on that, but yeah, the way this has been handled is probably what rubs me the wrong way. And then we heard an interview. I don't know, I guess it was a podcast that AJ Pierzynski's on, Zach Gallen, who the Cardinals traded years ago as part of the package for Marcell Ozuna, which is makes the whole deal. Imagine having Alcantara and Zach Gallen in your rotation right now, right? Instead, you had Marcell Ozuna jumping up a wall to only have a ball land, 10 feet in front of him on the warning track. That's what we got out of that deal. So it's pretty bad. But he went over, I guess the days leading up to when he got traded, and it was kind of a story that puts more egg on the Cardinals' face. And again, they deserve that. Traded him in 2018. They needed a bat going into that season. They didn't have one. They tried the Matt Carpenter experiment, and that didn't work. Sticking him in the middle of the order, had to go back to leadoff. So they needed a bat. So Miami probably asked for Zach Gallen. Or I don't know. Maybe the Cardinals offered him up because they didn't like that he missed 2 winter camps or something like that, right? And so they don't handle shit like that well. But that was something he came out and said publicly today that makes the Cardinals look. There's probably more to that story, and maybe that was innocent there. That he was part of a deal. They needed a bat, so they got a bat. That didn't work out for him, but it's worked out for him. He's kicking ass out in Arizona, and he sure would look nice back on the staff right now. But it is what it is. It's just one more of a growing list of players the Cardinals have dealt away that seem to be having a lot of success elsewhere. Now would be a great time for them, probably about 3 years too late, to really be introspective and look in the mirror and figure out what the fuck are we doing? Because nothing, everything we touch and then hand away seems to be thriving outside of St. Louis these days. So, but I was thinking about this deal with Willson Contreras and the parallel to Dexter Fowler deal. And there's a lot of similarities in this. If you think about the Cardinals, perhaps a little bit more than an FU signing to Chicago after 2016, but I still think there was a little bit of aspect to that. The Cardinals had lost Matt Holliday, to the Yankees. They weren't going to re-sign him. They let him walk. So they have, nobody in the middle of that order. Alan Craig was traded in 2014. He fell apart after an injury, never recovered. So the whole middle of your lineup that you thought was going to be there for a little while just wasn't there. Holiday out. Nobody left. You had no threat in the middle of that order in 2017. I think we can all look at that. And going into 2016, or 2017. Sorry, I'm all over the place here. There's just nobody in the middle of that lineup. So the thought was your best hitter, we're going to move him out of leadoff and into the 3 or 4 hole. Right, that's what happened in 2017. So they signed Dexter Fowler to fill that leadoff spot. Dexter Fowler, a successful center fielder and leadoff, maybe not the best, we know not the best defensively, but a successful leadoff hitter for a championship team. So they bring him in to do that. You're going to be our leadoff guy. You're going to play center field. Weeks, months into that experiment already dies, and you signed him to a 5-year deal. Sound familiar? Matt Carpenter could not handle the middle of the order. He hadn't grown his fucking salsa garden yet, so that wasn't going to work. So he had to be moved back to leadoff. Dex gets moved way down in the lineup and eventually out of center field and into right field, and then a rash of injuries or whatever started. Sound familiar, guys? Because I feel like it's happening again to another former Cub here in 2023. Not saying that the performance has been spectacular. It's been great, that there haven't been issues, but man, these are strangely similar.
Yeah, but you're still going to get the offensive production from Willson Contreras, and you saw it this week. So, I mean, that's where, he did start off slow, but his offense is there. There's not, I don't feel like there's going to be any problems with there. Where with Dexter, you had major problems with his offensive production.
What's going to be the problem with his offense is now you've put him in DH where you were going to have Nolan Gorman, Burleson. You had other guys for DH. Like, you did not need a DH. You needed a catcher. And now you've got Andrew Kisner in there every day, right? You didn't trust him for a reason. It wasn't necessarily his defense. He extremely light hitting catcher, right? A hole in the order, and he wasn't Yachty on defense. Good, but not Yachty good as far as all the intangibles. So now you've got Wilson plugging up the DH spot. Like, you wouldn't have signed Willson Contreras for $90 million to be a DH.
Absolutely not.
Right? So there you go. It creates other problems. While his personal offense might not be an issue, the impact it has to the entire roster and what you thought you were going to throw out there every day, it does throw a wrench into it. So offensive, it is going to impact them offensively. And where the days off Goldie and Arenado are going to get by also rotating into DH, right? So
right.
You got that whole issue too, which is not good. I think they, regardless of preparation, whatever, those could have been conversations that should have been had. He should still be catching right now.
I think he will be by probably the end of next week. He'll probably be back behind the dish. I mean, they have to, because it causes way too many problems.
Yeah,
and they're gonna start to see it and running through scenarios.
The Cardinals don't anticipate problems these days very well. They wait until they dig themselves a hole before they try to react to them. So I have no confidence in this team, Elliott, that they'll do what millions of sets of eyes clearly see that needs to happen. I doubt they'll do it. I don't think it'll be that soon.
Yeah, I don't know that he's going to be behind the dish anytime soon.
Yeah, which is stupid.
How do you justify it?
They got to swallow their pride, say we fucked up.
They won't do that.
I mean, they have to.
I would love them to. They're not going to.
Affecting the team.
Yeah, well, they're not going to do that. You might as well get Lovie Smith to report 100% accuracy on a player injury. Like, that's how likely it is that the Cardinals are ever going to admit they made a mistake here. They're not going to do that. It's just not who they are. They have to be the smartest. They have to be the smartest guys in the room at all times.
Obviously not. They're actually the most embarrassing.
They're one of the fucking dumbest front offices.
Right
They've devolved into one of the dumbest front offices, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm stunned.
Pete's stunned that he has nothing to add to this because I've just buried them under fucking 6 feet of rubble.
Well, the funny thing is, and I heard somebody say this the other day, that not the the Cubs are a better organization right now than the St. Louis Cardinals, like a better run organization. And you haven't heard that.
No, You haven't,
not even when Theo was there. Did you hear that?
Yeah, and we've even lost the lever that we can usually pull to say, oh, the Cardinals have a history. Well, they've built a new one, and it ain't good. So whatever was history is history. Whatever the Pujols Molina era is gone, and it is. I'm sorry, Wainwright's not a powerful enough force there to recapture that magic of the last 2 decades. That time has passed, and the Cardinals are behind the times. And they're reluctant to change, which a lot of people now, if you look at the Twitter folk and all the people on social media, I mean, a lot of people are clamoring for an outside voice to get in there. That they're too. I think I saw the words on it. They're too insular on Twitter. You know, they only promote they only hire from within. They only promote from within, and it's been their way. And you really got to question.
They need to evolve, and they need to change.
Yeah,
because they do. Right now, what they're doing is not working.
No, the hoarding of prospects that usually don't pan out. The bad bets they place on players. They put their chips down on O'Neill and Bader, and decided to discard who they thought wasn't worthy in terms of Rosarena and Adolis Garcia. And you see those guys in the leaderboards now.
Just imagine if you would have kept those 2 guys.
All 4 I've mentioned tonight? Yeah, I'd be pretty damn happy. Alcantara, Zach Gallen, Adolis Garcia, and Randy Rosarena on the same roster right now. Yeah, Elliott, thank you. That hurts, and it should hurt. It hurts everybody but the Cardinals front office publicly. Mm-hmm. Guess you got to go through this kind of stuff, right? Like, is this either going to break the mold and they're gonna do something, or we're just in for a long haul of just shit like this for years to come.
I mean, I'm here for it. I can't wait.
Well, I know you are. I know he is too. I would be if I were you guys. But yeah, this is I gotta say this, guys. It's not boring. The product on the field is boring, but the drama here is not. This is the most exciting thing that's happened to the Cardinals, in my opinion, since the day Nolan Arenado got traded. Around all that, it's been pretty boring shit to watch or pay attention to or even read about. At least this has got me reading articles again about this team. That's how pissed off it's made me. Yeah.
Well, and it's just it's so fitting that Willson comes in and then has a couple of great games, and it pretty much was all the offense in the first game against the Cubs.
Yeah.
In the series. So and then gets his.
I was going to ask you guys about that. Did that bother you two, or did you guys expect that from him?
Well, that's the way he plays. He's always like that.
He thrives off being the villain, right?
He thrives off the passion, and he shows it.
Which is one of the things. It's annoying. It's annoying when you're on the other side. All right, he annoyed me.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So, and I'm sure after Christopher Morel hit that home run and he's out there screaming.
Oh, I hated it. I didn't like him last year either. Yeah, it was like, great. Here's a brand new fresh Cub that's going to annoy the shit out of me for the next 5 years.
At least.
Thank God Pryor's shoulder gave out, because that son of a bitch was going to be he was in the exact same boat.
Yeah, I tell you quite honestly, for me, the stunning thing on all of this is how far and how fast this happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
You won the division last year. Everybody was expecting that it was a 2-team race in the Central Division. And it's just, can we just pause for a second and just notice how terrible the Central is? Your team is off to a historically bad start. And the last time I checked this morning, there were only 7 games out of play.
It is crazy. It really is crazy. And if you look at like the last 2 weeks of National League Central teams and their records, it is like,
it's shitty.
It's like they're begging for the unbalanced schedule to come back.
The Cubs are 6-10 in their last 16 games. So
yeah, I mean, I think my team's pretty much been worse, but still, Pete's right. You look at it, and you're like, how are you only like 7.5 games out playing this?
The Pirates just lost like 7 in a row or something like that. I mean, at one point, you guys were 10.5 games out.
But
or something like that.
Still, it takes the Pirates. They have to lose 7 games in a row for you to just get within 7 or 8. Like, it's the role reversal, like, completely. Still, as bad as this, as bad as it is, You can only ride the coattails of history for so long, right? This continues. Like, you're kind of like, hey, you remember the good old days back in 2021? That's what it's going to feel like. But imagine just being an Oakland fan right now. For as dismal as it is right now in the National League Central, and especially in St. Louis, God damn, imagine being an Oakland's fan right now. Like,
oh my God.
The embarrassing record, knowing you're losing your team.
As embarrassing as they are, there was no expectations for that team this year.
Mm-hmm.
The one fan base I still feel bad. I know we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Are the White Sox fans?
Oh Jesus, yeah, that is pretty brutal.
I mean, expected to win the division and maybe make a deep playoff run this year, and they have just absolutely fallen apart.
Yeah,
like in every aspect. Like you sit there, like I threw a game on the other day and I hear the crowd chanting, "Sell this team, sell this team."
But the thing is, like, who in the country cares besides the people that live on the south side?
Yeah.
And a few questionable individuals from somewhere in the central of the state. You're like, how the hell did you ever end up being a White Sox fan? Please tell me why.
One of the smart ones that went to school.
I guess. So, yeah, it's been drama packed this week. I don't really know what I have to add or say that hasn't already been said somewhere out there on a podcast or radio or in any article, blog, or major outlet. I can't say anything that already hasn't been said. This is the most people that have ever piled on the Cardinals organization in a negative way in my memory.
100%.
And I have to say, it's deserved.
And yet, you guys took 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of a surprise. I'll admit that it was kind of a surprise.
So tell me, what do you think the sense is? I mean, what do you think the sense is in the Cardinals locker room? Do they come out of that feeling like, okay, we've started to right this ship, or is it, nothing has changed? This team's still messed up.
I think they've got enough players there that have at least been on with the organization long enough. And I'm not talking about Wainwright. I'm talking about, some of the other ones like Goldschmidt and Arenado, that leaders of the team, you would think, right, that have experienced what that most of that group is capable of doing. And I think there's probably some sense here that, we've been underperforming vastly. And if we just get to norm, we're still in this thing. We just got to dig ourselves out of this ginormous hole we've dug. But here's what I think is going to happen, Pete. If something doesn't change with the pitching, they're going to keep having to continually dip into that bullpen in the 5th or 6th inning, and that cannot sustain itself or last. They've got to have some people in there, whether it's long mid relievers. They're going to have to shake that up because they're going to have major blowout, I think, in that bullpen if they don't get this starting pitching fixed. And I don't know how they do that. I don't know how you do it. I don't think the staff is just going to have a private meeting and turn it around all of a sudden. So I don't see it improving. They'll be lucky if they get to September with a 500 record. I'd say that's a huge turnaround. I don't see how they do it with the pitching they're carrying right now. I don't think it's possible.
Is there anybody in the minors that's close?
You got Matthew Libator, part of the Randy Arozarena deal, and evidently the Cardinals, and I've heard Bernie say this, they really badly wanted to trade away Arozarena so Libator could help the Memphis Redbirds capture a championship in 2023 because they're not bringing him up. And I think he was pitcher of the month for the Pacific Coast League. But they haven't brought him up. So I don't know who's blocking him. I don't know what their philosophy is right now, but with pitching being your weakness and guys not getting past the 4th, 5th inning seems like a Herculean effort at this point. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. Not saying he's going to come up and be the stopper all of a sudden or the staff ace, but I don't know how he could do any worse than what they have right now. I don't. So they would have to move a starter or two to the bullpen, I think. You're hearing Matt's name lobbied around for that. Could be a possibility. Injury Jack Flaherty looks like shit. Continues to talk, but looks like shit, which is another story I didn't mention. Yeah, it's. I don't know how they do it this year. I really don't. Pitching is going to be their Achilles heel. Is and will continue to be, I guess.
I'm here for it.
Well, the Cubs are about to have a choice to make when it comes to their pitching staff because you got Kyle Hendricks coming back up. And there's going to be a rotation spot, or do you go to 6? You know,
I bet they go to 6 at least one time.
Yeah,
they'll just give everybody an extra day off.
Because I mean, you're not taking out Steele, you're not taking out Dion, you're not taking out Stroh. Yeah, I mean that's a tough one to kind of mull through. I mean, I guess you could move somebody to the bullpen because that's kind of where help is needed right now. I mean, shit, you started out the season with Fulmer as your closer, and that didn't last very long. So,
or you start out your season with Helsley, you can't use him because you don't have any close situations for like 2 weeks straight. Which problem would you rather have?
Oh, you're supposed to be close?
You're supposed to be ahead, yeah, at least. Otherwise, you're getting scrap time just to get your arm some action. I guess I don't. Yeah, I'd rather.
Smiley's,
that's a good.
Not coming out,
that's probably a good problem to have, though, Elliott. If you got 6 starters, and you're trying to figure out how you're going to fit them in going forward. I'm sure a lot of teams would love to have that issue.
I mean, I have a feeling it's going to be Wisniewski who might end up being the odd man out when Kyle comes up. That would move to the bullpen for a long arm. So, I mean, it wouldn't be terrible. Usually once he gets past the first inning, he usually settles it down and is pretty good. So if you've got somebody who has a bad day or an injury, I mean, you've got him as your backup, and that's not bad. That's not a bad pitcher to have as your backup 5th starter.
Man, you guys are struggling. None of this shit is as fun to talk about as the Cardinals front office and organization melting down, is it? Because that was the most
you're the
boring.
One who said that we would enjoy this year.
I did.
That is true.
But not for this reason. I thought you'd have fun just watching the collection of former All-Stars take one more swing at it. I thought that's what you would enjoy, not this.
You mean our catcher Jan, our veteran catcher Jan Gomes with 8 home runs already?
Yeah.
He's the straw that stirs the drink, baby.
Well, I think Wisdom's
8 home runs last year until September.
and go figure, right? All of these former Cardinals that are in the leaderboards around the league, and then you got Patrick Wisdom, sitting near the top of the home run charts in the National League, and then fans that don't know any better don't know he was like DFA'd like 8 times before he finally landed in Chicago. Like the damn league didn't even want him. I'll scream, oh, we could have, where's Patrick Wisdom? Look what he's doing for the Cubs. Okay, you want to put him at third base? You're right. We should have never got that Arenado guy.
Yeah.
What a horrible thing. Cardinals fans are so stupid. They did the same bullshit with Luke. They did the same bullshit with Luke Voit when he was hitting home runs for the Yankees when he, by accident, for a couple months there, and they're like, oh, Luke Voigt's turning it up. Well, okay, well, I guess we don't want Paul Goldschmidt.
Jeez. Yeah.
Stay to it, man. Per capita, I think we got the dumbest. I think we got the highest ratio.
You reckon so?
It's a contender. It is definitely a top 3. Based on my exposure to these idiots, it's a top 3. And if you want a taste of it, just sign yourself up for a Cardinals fan Facebook group for about a week, and you'll know. Any of them.
I'd go there for the entertainment.
I mean, I'm with you there, Elliott. It would have been interesting to watch that shit happen over the last couple of weeks. But I'm happy to be out of all of those. They'll make you dumber.
I don't know. I'm not sure who the best ones are. When the Brewers are playing bad, they're Twitter fans, or the Cardinals fans.
Well, just Cato Kalin is worth the following itself. Yep. All right, guys. I don't know what else to bring up in the world of baseball. I've got nothing else interesting that this has kind of dominated the headline.
Yep.
Out at the plate, Chicago Sun-Times. That was a pretty creative front of the sports page. I will give him credit for that.
Sounds like a show title to me.
Out at the plate. I like it. It's a little bit of a ripoff, but yes.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to comment and subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please just give us a 5-star review and tell your friends to do the same. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts, as well as Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. Be sure to check out the other Gateway City Sports Network podcasts, including the Derek King Sports Show. That's a Winner podcast, talking sports in the bleachers with Don Glenn, 2 for 3 with Moose Michaels. And do you know the name?
Nope. Just move on.
Fine. XFL STL name to be shared later. You can find Elliott on Twitter at
TOR_Elliott.
And Ron at
TOR_Ron75.
Get in touch with us at the show at teamofrivalspodcast.com or on any social media channel at Team of Rivals Pod. Gentlemen, this was a Ron heavy episode. So if you're a Cubs fan and you came for Cubs talk, well, enjoy the Schadenfreude and enjoy Ron's anguish over his team.
Thank you for the exit ramp there, Pete. But you know, if I trace my roots to baseball fandom, they go through my father, and then they go through his dad, and our whole, you know, history of following the St. Louis Cardinals goes back. It's always been a family thing, and you know, if it wasn't for my grandfather, his dad, I wouldn't be doing this for free for 6.5 years, talking about this and hooking up with you guys every night, talking about baseball, because I wouldn't give a shit. I do though, and it goes back through family. Just growing up on that. It was kind of cool tonight because my 12-year-old got to catch for the teenage team. They needed a player. They came up. He caught every inning for them. And he played the catching position, which my dad did when he played in high school. His dad did when he played baseball too. So it's kind of the catching gene skipped me. I sucked behind the plate. That's why I was always stuck in the outfield. But it was kind of cool seeing him catch tonight because today my paternal grandfather, Andy, you know, he passed away last night. But that's where, if I trace my baseball fandom personally back, it probably goes back through him. He was a big time Cardinals fan. The whole family is, and so we can trace our roots through that. So rest in peace, Grandpa, and your great grandson was out there catching just like you did, and just like your son did tonight. So that was at least the good part of my night was seeing that and just kind of getting to think about Grandpa. You know, he'd been 91 years old. He lived a good full life. So better place now, and thinking about him, and we'll be back in Illinois next week. So if we can all manage to link up on Thursday night, good chance we could do this again. I'll just be a little bit remote, but until then, we love you all so much. Bye-bye, everyone.